Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another Incursio the Gamer Dungeons & Dragons boss build video. Today we have with us a little something special, a disgraced Sottocapo of the Thumb, the tutor of Lucho, the Thumb apprentice, and one of the 5 parental figures, the nurse father of the Thumb, assigned to teach Yoshihide in the House of Spiders, the Thumb nurse father, Valencina. Now, of course, it's been a hot little second since the last boss build. I'm kind of excited, I'm kind of giddy. I'm a little bit, giggling in my chair. It's kind of awesome. But, of course, before we start with the boss build, let's talk about who she is. So, of course, my favorite, an older woman. But get this, not only is she an older woman, she has a short temper and loves booze. So that means after a long day of beating people up outside, she'll come home and beat me. Anyways, that's enough of an introduction. Let's talk about the Thumb Nurse Father, Valencina. Medium humanoid, neutral evil, armor class 16 cloth. Now, this is a little bit low, but you guys will see why later, as well as her hit points being only 448. You will see later. Speed 60 feet, and of course, let's talk stats. So Dex, Con, Wisdom, and Strength will be your priority stats, and Intelligence, Charisma will be your dump stats. If you're going on a stat, budget, that would be, the idea, but at CR 23, this is the most ideal layout. Now, speaking of CR, challenge rating, they're absolute bullshit. I hate challenge ratings. I've said this every single time we've done a boss build. I absolutely cannot stand them. The XP system sucks ass, but it's fine. Because I'll just tell you right now, she's good against, 4 level 12, 13, 14 builds if they have magic items, level 14, 15, 16 builds if they don't have magic items. Because, magic items add more to hit, deal a little more damage, that sort of idea. Now, let's talk about other things for now. Saving throws, Dex, Con, Wisdom proficiencies, skills, acrobatics, athletics, insight, intimidation, perception, performance, and sleight of hand proficiencies. Resistant to non-magical piercing and psychic, and condition immunities, charmed and frightened. Of course, some baseline stuff. Senses, dark vision, and passive perception, 22. And the languages are common in Thieves' Cant, which is the Thumb code. I don't think Valentina is very smart like that. I don't think she understands languages all that well. So, anyways, let's talk about our traits now. The House of Spiders. Valentina has proven her strength as the Thumb Nurse Father for the House of Spiders and is quite capable in both combat and teaching, but not really teaching because she beats kids. With such, she is resistant to psychic and piercing damage as well as being immune to frightened and charmed conditions. Shame of the Familia Bonatelli, I think that's how you pronounce it. Though she was the inheritor of the Parliamentian style and was promoted to the rank of Sottocapo before, her behavior and attitude, she was disowned by the Thumb after that. So technically, even though she's allowed to keep the Eye of Odin and her sword, they were, tainted in the eyes of the Thumb. Therefore, yeah, she's kicked out, she's disowned, she's no longer with them. But she has access to legendary actions only after she reaches 50% of her HP for the first time. In addition to that, she has acceleration rounds. She may begin the combat with 10 acceleration rounds and spend these to attack opponents with certain moves, as you guys can probably already see. Attacks that expend them count as magical weapon attacks for the sake of overcoming resistances and immunities, and will be marked with a star, as you guys can see here. Now, if she makes an attack that consumes it while not having ammunition, she deals half damage instead. So, there we go. Instead of being unable to perform the attack, it's like double slash versus double slash blast with Lei Hung. Pretty standard stuff, I'd say personally. So, for Shin and Mang, she also has that. Once a Sottocapo, she was not a pushover, she was quite strong. So she can manifest Shin upon reaching 50% of her HP for the first time, and any 1 or 2 she rolls on the dice becomes a 3 automatically. So no nat 1s, pretty good. For Mang, activatable with certain moves, she can manifest up to 1 ring of Mang and deal an additional 9 or 2d8 radiant damage with every ring that she summons, and these rings disappear and reset to 0 rings at the beginning of each of her turns. This means you cannot, Infamang max? Fuck if I know. Yeah, you can't just farm that shit all the time. Sure, you can summon it each turn with a specific move, but you can't summon, 30 rings of Mang. So, there we have it, there we go. And Eye of Precognition, her relic, the Eye of Odin, is very useful. Now, it possesses limited precognitive abilities. She begins every combat with 10 stacks of Eye of Precognition, can have a maximum of 10 stacks of Eye of Precognition at a time, and of course at the beginning of each of her turns, if she did not begin with 0 stacks, she regains 10 stacks. Now, the following effects do take place according to the amount of stacks she has. So, Accelerating Future, when she possesses 10 stacks of Eye of Precognition, she gains advantage on the first attack of her turn. When at 20 stacks, she gains advantage on all attacks she makes. And, you can only ever reach 20 stacks if you started with 10 or more stacks during the turn, so you either need to wait a whole turn, where you don't get hit or no one tries to hit you, and then you have to wait, that other turn, and then start that turn, bam, you got 20 stacks. You're never going to reach this point, is what I'm trying to say. Precognition, she gains an AC boost equal to her current Eye of Precognition stack at any given moment with a maximum of plus 10 to your AC. So that 26 AC is going to be your maximum, where 16 is your lowest. And when in Overheat, she loses access to any forms of bonus AC. Now, you might be thinking, okay, if she's at 20 stacks, how do you lower it? At 10 stacks, how do you lower it? Well, here we are, Overloaded. When she, has an attack that hits her, or that misses, it loses 1 stack. When the attack hits, it loses 2 stacks. When she succeeds a saving throw, she loses 1 stack. When she fails a saving throw, she loses 2 stacks. So what you guys are going to be seeing is she loses stacks fast, but she gains stacks fast. And by like turn 3 or 4, she'll be out of Eye of Precognition, and she goes into Overheat. When she begins her turn with 0 stacks of Eye of Precognition, she loses her defensive capabilities, does not gain any stacks, but instead deals 1 less damage dice, but gains advantage on all of her attacks made during the attack action. So basically a, weakened version of the 20 stack version, but just dealing a ton less damage. So pretty fair, I'd personally say. She regains 10 Eye of Precognition on the turn following, the overheated turn. So she does eventually get that Eye back and can stack back up to her high AC self. Time to Hunt. Upon reaching 50% of her HP, Valentina can not only gain Shin, but also marks a creature she can see within 60 feet. At the beginning of each of her turns, she may target a new creature until the beginning of her next turn, and deal an additional damage dice to the target whenever she hits them. Has advantage on any Wisdom, Perception, or Survival checks to find that creature, and this resets each turn. She can choose the same creature over and over again, or a new creature each time. This is basically Hunter's Mark, and I felt like it was, a good little, representation, because she does have a skill that's kind of like Hunter's Mark. What was it called again? I think it was like Game Target or something. So, additionally, when Valentina is fighting alongside the Thumb Apprentice Lucho, she may activate Time to Hunt before reaching 50% of her HP, instead if Lucho is, rendered unconscious or killed in battle. So, that's pretty neat. It does throw out, okay, you don't need to reach 50% of your HP and then, be bloodied. You can also be fighting alongside someone weaker than you, that you did teach, and oh, they go down? Okay, you go into your quote-unquote rage mode. This shit Goku. And legitimately, this is amazing. Of course, now we also have to talk about our actions. So, the Sword of Palermo. So here's the issue. I don't speak Spanish. So yeah, since I can't speak Spanish, I'm going to be reading, the English translation right next to them. I did put it next to pretty much all of them. So, here we are. First, she makes 2 attacks, one cutting strokes and the other one stabbing strokes, then 2 additional weapon attacks from the given choices below. Additionally, she may choose to also instead use Disposal instead of performing her 4 attack actions, and upon reaching 50% of her HP for the first time, her attack pattern changes. She first makes either 1 cutting strokes or stabbing strokes, and then 3 additional attacks from the given choices below. So she can make stronger attacks as time goes on. So for cutting strokes, it is a melee weapon attack plus 10 to hit, it is 1 target, 15 damage, slashing. The target thus must make a strength saving throw DC 16 or be knocked prone. Pretty standard stuff. Now for stabbing strokes, now this is plus 11 to hit, it is 19 piercing damage. They must make a con saving throw DC 16 or take an additional 11 force damage, and this does expend 2 acceleration rounds, so it would go from 10 to 8. Pretty standard stuff. Rabbit Butchering, plus 15 to hit, very high, but only 15 slashing damage. The target then must make a con saving throw DC 12 or suffer, disadvantage on the next attack roll. Now I do realize this DC 12 is a little low, but I mean, you're butchering a rabbit, you're going for precision instead of, like all the effects ever. So it is just trying to guarantee a hit with this one. For, of course, Deer Butchering, it's a little different. Instead of Rabbit Butchering high rolling and then low damage, you have a low rolling, plus 11 to hit, and 22 high damage slashing. You may also choose to roll with at a disadvantage, because if it still does hit upon disadvantage, you generate 1 Mong, and deal an additional 9 radiant damage with each attack you make after this, until the beginning of your next turn. Next, of course, Elephant Butchering. This one's a big one. Now, it does cost 2 attack actions, meaning instead of doing, your 2 attack actions, cutting strokes, stabbing strokes, rabbit butchering, and then deer butchering, you do cutting strokes, stabbing strokes, and then elephant butchering, and then you end your turn. So it does do a plus 12 to hit and 26 piercing damage. The target must then make a wisdom saving throw DC 12 or be stunned until the beginning of her next turn. Additionally, this attack is unable to be critically hit, so if you roll a nat 20, it counts as a 19. However, if the attack misses, she still deals 12 slashing damage to the target, and this does expend 3 acceleration rounds. So basically, it's a guaranteed hit, and of course the stun is a nice little effect. It is, Tremor Burst, but I could only flavor it so much in, this way. And lastly, disposal, it takes up your entire action, so it's a little bit stronger. You can only do it twice a day. In a moment of heated rage, she expends all her currently held ammunition, if she has any left, and goes for a kill. If she chooses a target within 30 feet and slashes wildly at them, subjecting them to a dexterity saving throw DC 22. On a failure, they take 18 slashing damage, or half as much on a successful save. If the victim failed the first saving throw, they must make an additional strength saving throw DC 16 or be knocked prone. Now this is pretty weak, right? A very, very guaranteed hit right there with a dex saving throw, but there's a little extra to it. For every acceleration round expended with this attack, she deals an additional 1d8 damage, maximum of 4 acceleration rounds for 4d8 extra damage. That's 8d8 right now. So what is that, like 36 damage right now? So that's pretty good. Additionally, for every 2 Eye of Precognition she possesses when performing this attack, she deals an additional 1d8 damage, maximum of another 4d8. So right now we're looking at 12d8 at her maximum selling point with 12 Eye of Precognition and 4 acceleration rounds. Additionally, if the target chosen has, the time to hunt effect on her, or on them, she deals an additional 2d8 damage of the same type, slashing. So now, instead of looking at, 48 plus 48 plus 48, we're looking at 14d8 at a current maximum. And lastly, she may also choose to manifest up to 1 Mong when performing disposal, another 2d8 radiant damage instead of slashing, but in doing so giving the target a advantage on saving throw, because at this point, that's like 16d8, pretty much a guaranteed kill. So you want to give them advantage, hopefully having that damage. Really, right here, this is her guaranteed, her sure kill skill. And this is what you're going to be using if you have a Virgilius on your team. If the Virgilius and then the 4 level 14 players, or, 1 Virgilius, which is level 20, and then like 3 level 14 players, there we go, are fighting against her, and the Lucho, who's also probably level 16, then you can use disposal against whoever you'd like. Virgilius would probably clash with it very nicely. His AC will probably be high, his dex saving throw will probably be nice, so that's what we're looking for here. Moving on to reactions, you also have precognition, which is you can do it up to twice a round. If a target misses all of their attacks, minimum requirement of 2 attacks, so, this is basically upon evading all coins in a skill, then, she may expend her reaction to perform I believe this was like rabbit butchering attack. So, looking at this, she can perform this reaction up to twice a round. However, it must be triggered by 2 different creatures that miss all of their attacks. Spells with multiple bullets or rolls, such as Eldritch Blast, Scorching Ray, or Blade of Disaster, may also trigger this precognition. And, that being said, say an Assassin's Sneak attack, if they fail that, it's perfectly fine, they are safe. And if an enemy only has 1 attack action and misses, they're unable to be subjected to her precognition reaction. That is basically it there. Additionally, when using precognition for the first time, she may reload all of her expended ammo up to once a day. So that means she can have a maximum of 20 ammo used in a day, especially with disposal. But that means, she can't just do disposal all the time. Can't just, use ammunition attacks all the time. She does get weaker over time. I said time so many times. But yes, she does ramp up and ramp down, just like every other boss that I've built so far. For example, Ricardo, he ramps up better than he ramps down. For Lei Hung, he ramps down worse than he ramps up. This is also a pretty similar case with, Lei Hung and, Lei Hung and Valencina, they're kind of similar in this aspect. They're ramped down because they do lose ammo a little fast. It is unfortunately not as good as they're ramping up. Especially with her Eye of Precognition, it has potential to ramp up and down, but when she reaches 50% HP for the first time, her ramp up is quite nice. So her legendary actions, she has 3 points and may take, 1 at the end of each of a creature's turn. Accelerating Futures, 1 action. She may move up to 30 feet of her movement speed without provoking an opportunity attack. Lucho, you little shit, useless little shit, costs 1 action as well. She may make a cutting slash, what was it called? Yeah, cutting strokes or stabbing strokes attack. Of her choice. So if she has the ammunition for it, she can make a stabbing stroke. If not, she makes a cutting stroke. And I'll gladly blast a hole through you. It costs 2 legendary actions. She makes I believe it was like elephant butchering? Yeah. She makes an elephant butchering attack against a creature. However, because it is performed as a legendary action, she is unable to stun them. Thus, they do not make the saving throw. However, this only costs 2 acceleration rounds. So there's a give and take with this one. As a legendary action, I'll gladly blast a hole through you. Now, this is mostly the build. Of course, we also have the description. She's a tall, older woman. Oh my god, I could stare into those sea green eyes all day long. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that right there is the Thumb Nurse Father, Valentina. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching this one. This one is actually a really fun build. I quite enjoyed myself personally, because, making bosses again, it's fun. And especially with, they're complex, sure, it's all homebrew, and some people might not like the homebrew, but the Eye of Precognition stacks, it was really fun to make. Sure, I did kind of copy it over from the Limbus, enemy sheet, but I mean, 20 stacks instead of 30, regaining 10, but she loses so many more stacks than she does, in Limbus. And in D&D, the game goes a lot faster than you might think. You might be thinking, oh, you'll be there for hours, and yeah, you are, but over the course of hours, only like 6 or 7 rounds have passed, so, this shit is ideal. I love D&D, I love Limbus Company, and I look forward to making more of the bosses. So for your DMs out there right now, alright, so she starts off fairly weak, but she does ramp up because she can keep using Mong, and then Shin ramps up over time, and then Eye of Precognition. You want to make sure that these stacks do not ever reach 0. So using her legendary action to move away from the enemies so that way they cannot hit her, meaning she does not have to be subjected to failed saving throws and attack misses, which also do lower her stack count. The further she stays away, the stronger she is, the closer she can get to 20 stacks, and that means her AC will be 26 for longer. It is inevitable that you're going to lose all your stacks eventually, because you're fighting against 4 players. They're going to whittle you down. So you want to try to keep it up as long as possible, unless you want to go in and just go for the kill. Now yes, Time to Hunt is very useful, but it only activated once reaching 50% of your HP or lower. So Shin, Time to Hunt, and a bunch of other things are only available then. Additionally, your legendary actions. So yeah, that's where we are right now. For your attacks, initially you start off with, cutting strokes and stabbing strokes, and then I would ideally do 2 deer butcherings. Rabbit butchering is good, only if, you have a high AC or lower HP, enemy that you want to guaranteed hit every single time. Now sure, you can also do elephant butchering. I would personally save that for later on in the game, because you're expending acceleration rounds with these. For this one, deer butchering, you're not, and you're also just dealing an extra 2d8 radiant damage with every single attack. This is very ideal. And of course, cutting strokes is nice because knocking prone is good, and then over here, this is, stabbing strokes. It does a little more damage than cutting strokes, so I would usually use this instead of, say, cutting strokes when given the choice. Now of course, Mong is useful, but you cannot always keep it up, because then you'll be farming Mong the entire game. So Disposal is also very good. I would most personally use this either, midway through the combat or at the very end of the combat when she's out of acceleration rounds and very low on Eye of Precognition. This way, your players at least have a chance to survive it. They take, instead of, like 16d8, they'll take 4d8, plus maybe like another 2d8, plus another 2d8, so 8d8 is still survivable. And then do not use your Mong for this one, if possible, because that's just ramping up too much damage at that point. Sure, you can use it if you're fighting against really strong players, but, if you're fighting against level 13 characters, don't do that shit. DMs, please lock in. Please, make your players have a fun time. For reactions, this is very nice against monks, specifically because they seem to always miss their attacks. But if you do get stunned, I'm so sorry, it's over for you. So, yeah, very, very nice stuff. Legendary actions, most of the time you're going to be using Accelerating Future to get away from your enemies, and Lucho, you useless little shit, because an extra attack, doing 2 of them is better than just doing 1 of them. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is, the overview of how to use the Thumb Nurse Father, Valentina. If you want to know how to fight against her, yeah, just kill her as fast as possible. Do not let her ramp up. Stay as close to her as possible. Do not let her, keep up her stacks of Eye of Precognition, and you should be fine. So, without further ado, that is the Thumb Nurse Father. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye and good night.